I stared at the fuel gauge. Its needle hovered just above empty, mocking our predicament. I, Seth, had seen my share of tight spots, but this was cutting it close. "Well?" Rax's voice sounded rough through the ship's speakers. "What's the verdict, boss?" I keyed the mic. "About as bad as we thought. We've got enough juice for maybe one more short jump. After that, we're dead in the void." A string of colourful curses erupted from multiple channels. The rest of the crew, Coda, Vern, and Sol, had been listening in. Can't blame them. When you're staring death in the face, you want to know just how ugly its smile is. Options. This from Vern, our pilot. Always the pragmatist. I leaned back in the captain's chair, its worn padding offering little comfort. We've got 3 choices. 1, we limp to the nearest outpost and hope we don't run dry before we get there. 2, we send out a distress call and pray someone feeling charitable comes along before our life support gives out. Or 3... I took a moment. The idea had been gnawing at me ever since we'd entered this system, but I dismissed it as suicidal. Now, with our backs against the wall, it didn't seem so crazy. "Spit it out, Seth," Coda growled. "What's behind door number 3? I took a deep breath. "We go after the vault." Silence filled the comm channels for a long moment. Then, predictably, they all started talking at once. "The vault? You mean that old ghost story?" Rax scoffed. "Have you lost your mind?" This from Saul, our medic. Coda's laughter boomed through the speakers. "Now you're talking. Better to go out swinging than suffocate in this tin can." I let them argue for a minute before cutting in. All right. I know it sounds insane, but think about it. We're in the right system. That derelict station is out there, orbiting the gas giant. If even half the stories are true, the payoff would set us up for life. "If we survive," Vern added quietly. "There is that," I conceded. "But way I see it, our odds aren't great no matter what we choose. At least this way, we've got a shot at something big." More debate followed, but I could sense the tide turning. Desperation has a way of making the impossible seem worth trying. One by one, they came around. Even Saul, ever the voice of caution, eventually gave a grudging assent. "Fine," he said. "But when we're all dead or wishing we were, don't say I didn't warn you." I managed a grim smile. "Noted. All right, let's get to work. Rax, dig up everything you can find on the station's layout. Coda, inventory our weapons and gear. Vern, plot us a course that'll conserve every drop of fuel. Saul, maybe say a prayer or 2. We're going to need all the help we can get." As the crew scrambled to their tasks, I pulled up the star chart. The gas giant loomed large on the display, its swirling storms masking the tiny dot that represented the station. Our potential salvation, or our grave. My old mentor's words echoed in my mind. "There are some treasures in this universe that ain't meant to be found, boy." Some doors better left unopened. I'd laughed it off then. Now, with the lives of my crew hanging in the balance, I wasn't so sure. But we were committed now. Come riches or ruin, we'd see this through. I just hoped, when all was said and done, we'd be alive to regret it. The station emerged before us, a colossal monument to forgotten ambition. As Vern maneuvered our ship through the rubble field surrounding it, there was an undeniable sense of danger, like we were flies approaching a Venus flytrap. "Radiation levels are high," Rax reported from his console. "Whatever happened here, it wasn't pretty." I grunted. "Any sign of active systems?" "Negative. Place looks dead as a..." Rax cut himself off, frowning at his readouts. "Wait, getting some kind of intermittent power signature from the core. Faint, but it's there." "All right," I said. "Take us in, Vern. Nice and easy." Our ship approached the main docking bay, ancient guidance systems attempting to pull us in. Vern fought the controls, sweat beading on his brow. "Damn it," he muttered. "The radiation's playing havoc with our systems. I can't get a clean lock." I unstrapped from my seat. "Manual override. I'll talk you in." Peering through the view screen, I guided Vern through the treacherous approach. We scraped against the bay walls twice, the sound of screeching metal making me wince. But finally, with a thud, we were in. "Seal's not great, but it'll hold," Coda reported, checking the airlock readouts. "We've got about 6 hours of oxygen in our suits. After that, then we'd better not waste time. Gear up." As we donned our environment suits, I laid out the plan. Rax and I will head for the operations center, see if we can access any surviving logs. Coda, you and Sol sweep the lower levels. Look for any signs of that vault. Vern, stay with the ship. Be ready for a quick exit if things go south. Vern looked relieved at not having to venture into the station. Can't blame him. The place radiated wrongness. With a hiss of equalizing pressure, the airlock cycled open. We stepped out into a corridor dimly lit by faltering emergency lights. "All right," I said, forcing confidence into my voice. "Let's see what secrets this place is hiding." Rax and I made our way towards the ops center. The walls were scarred with plasma burns and what looked disturbingly like claw marks. More than once we had to climb over barricades of fused metal and melted plasteel. "What the hell happened here?" Rax whispered, his voice tight with tension. I shook my head. "Nothing good. Keep your eyes open." We rounded a corner and stopped short. The corridor ahead was littered with desiccated corpses, frozen in poses of terror and agony. Some clutched weapons, others appeared to have been running. All bore signs of horrific violence. Rax retched inside his helmet. "Come on," I said. "Ops center should be just ahead." The operations center was a mess of shattered displays and sparking consoles. Rax immediately set to work, searching for a functional terminal. "Here," he called after a few minutes. "This one's got some juice left." I joined him, watching as his fingers moved over the keypad. The screen activated, displaying a cascade of error messages and corrupted data. "Damn," Rax muttered. "The system's barely holding together, but I think I can..." Wait, what's this? A new window popped up, filled with fragmented text. As Rax scrolled through, my blood ran cold. Words and phrases jumped out at me. Containment breach, entity, XK-class scenario. "Rax," I said, my mouth dry, "I think we need to..." A burst of static cut me off, followed by a distorted voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Intruders detected. Vacate immediately. Containment protocols will be enforced." The lights flared blindingly bright, then plunged us into total darkness. In the distance, I heard the unmistakable sound of heavy machinery powering up. "Rax!" I said, grabbing his arm. "We're leaving. Now!" The darkness pressed in around us as Rax and I stumbled through the corridors. Our helmet lights cut weak beams through the gloom, barely illuminating the path ahead. "Seth," Coda spoke over the comm. "What the hell's going on? Everything just went dark down here." "Bad news," I panted, hauling Rax around a corner. "Station's AI is active, and it's not happy we're here." A distant rumble shook the deck plates beneath our feet. "Rax, any luck bypassing those security protocols?" Rax shook his head, still furiously tapping at his wrist computer. "Negative. Every time I find a workaround, it changes." Another tremor, stronger this time. The groaning of metal under stress echoed through the station. "Guys," Vern's voice came through. "Something's happening out here. The station's moving, realigning itself. Vern, fire up the engines. Be ready to detach the moment we're back." I can't," Vern replied, his voice cracking. "All systems just went dead. We're locked down tight." I forced my brain to focus, to find a way out of this mess. New plan. We need to get to the central core. If we can access the main systems there, we might be able to override this lockdown. "Coda, Sol, meet us at Junction B7, I ordered. "We'll make our way to the core from there." We rendezvoused with Coda and Sol at the junction, all of us breathing hard. Coda's massive frame was tense, his hand never far from his weapon. Sol looked shaken, his usually calm demeanor cracked. "Lower levels are a nightmare," Coda said. Found signs of some kind of last stand. Lot of bodies. Some of them, they didn't look quite human anymore. Any sign of the vault? Saul shook his head. Nothing concrete, but we did find this. He held up a small device, its surface covered in unfamiliar symbols. It was clutched in one of the corpse's hands. Tight, like their life depended on it. Before I could examine it closer, another violent tremor rocked the station. This time, the deck plates beneath us buckled. With a screech of tearing metal, the floor gave way. We fell, tumbling through darkness, punctuated by sparks and the screams of metal. I slammed hard against something, the impact knocking the wind out of me. Then, stillness. Groaning, I pushed myself up. My helmet light flickered weakly, revealing a vast space. "Sound off!" I croaked. 3 pained voices responded. We were alive, at least. As our light swept the area, the enormity of our situation became clear. We'd fallen into what looked like an enormous laboratory filled with technology, and at the center... "What the hell are those?" Coda whispered. Rows upon rows of stasis pods lined the walls, each containing a humanoid figure. But as we drew closer, our lights revealed the horrific truth. These weren't human, not anymore. Deformed limbs, altered features, cybernetic implants melded with flesh in grotesque ways. "This is not right," Saul muttered, his scientific curiosity warring with revulsion. "This kind of alteration, it's not possible." A memory surfaced, unbidden. My old mentor warning me about doors left unopened. I was starting to understand why. Rax had made his way to a central console. "Guys, I think I can access the main systems from here, but..." He stopped, looking up at us. "I'm not sure we're going to like what we find." "Do it! Whatever's going on here, we need answers." "Working on it," Rax muttered. "The encryption is... Wait, I think I've got something." A hologram materialized above the console. The image showed a man in an elaborate uniform, his face haggard and eyes wild with fear. "This is Admiral Kane of the hegemony science vessel Icarus. If you're seeing this, then our containment protocols have failed. The entity we discovered, it cannot be controlled, cannot be reasoned with. We thought we could harness its power. We were fools." The Admiral's image wavered, distorting for a moment before stabilizing. "The vault. It's not what you think. It's a prison. A cage for something that should never have been awakened. If you value your life, your very soul, leave this place. Destroy it if you can. But whatever you do, do not." The message cut off abruptly, leaving us in stunned silence. Coda was the first to speak. "Well, shit. We need to leave," Saul said, his voice shaking. "Whatever's here, it's not worth it." I was inclined to agree, but something nagged at me. Wait. The Admiral mentioned a vault. Maybe there's still something we can salvage from this mess. "Are you insane?" Saul hissed. "Did you not hear the warning?" "I heard it, but we're already in deep. Might as well see this through. Rax, can you find any information on this vault's location?" "There's a heavily secured area deeper in the station core. Massive power readings. Could be what we're looking for. Or it could be our doom," Saul muttered. "We'll take a vote," I said. "All in favor of pushing on?" To my surprise, Coda's hand went up along with mine. After a moment's hesitation, Rax joined us. Saul shook his head in disbelief. "You're all mad! But I'm not staying here alone. Let's get this over with." We made our way deeper into the station's core, passing through areas that appeared to ignore the laws of physics. Gravity shifted unpredictably, and more than once we encountered spaces that seemed larger on the inside than should have been possible. As we approached the coordinates Rax had identified, our suit sensors began to malfunction, and a persistent whisper plagued our comm channels. "There," Rax pointed. Ahead stood a massive vault door covered in shifting patterns. "How do we open it?" Coda asked, running his hand over the alien surface. The patterns on the door began to glow. A voice, both in our heads and seemingly from everywhere at once, spoke. "Seekers of knowledge, hunters of power. You stand at the threshold of understanding, but knowledge demands a price. Are you willing to pay it? The voice was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. What's the price? I asked. Everything, the voice replied. The door began to slide open, revealing a swirling vortex of energy beyond. We stood frozen, caught between terror and an overwhelming, unnatural curiosity. The choice before us was clear. Turn back now, or step into the unknown and face whatever lay beyond. Well, boys, what's it going to be? The swirling vortex beyond the vault door emanated an intense energy, luring us inward. I took a step forward. Wait. Saul grabbed my arm. This is madness, Seth. We have no idea what's in there. Coda snorted. That's the point, isn't it? Besides, you heard the creepy voice. Knowledge has a price. And you're willing to pay it? Saul challenged. I shook off Saul's grip. We've come too far to turn back now. Whatever's in there, it's got to be better than slowly suffocating when our air runs out. With a resigned sigh, Saul nodded. Fine. But when this all goes to hell, remember, I warned you. We stepped through the threshold together. The moment we crossed, reality seemed to warp around us. Colors shifted, became things I had no words for. Before us stretched a vast, circular chamber, easily 100 meters across. Lining the walls were rows of metallic pillars, each glowing with a soft blue light. In the center, a series of concentric rings were embedded in the floor, etched with spiraling patterns. Holographic displays hovered at various points around the room, showing what looked like star charts and complex molecular structures. The text accompanying these images was composed of sharp, angular symbols. Holy, Rax whispered, his eyes wide behind his helmet visor. Look at those data processing units. He pointed to a cluster of crystalline structures near one wall, each about the size of a person. They emitted a rhythmic sound and occasionally sparked with arcs of energy. As we moved deeper, I noticed the air becoming noticeably cooler. The oppressive heat we'd felt in the outer station was gone, replaced by a crisp, almost sterile atmosphere. Look, Coda pointed to a raised platform in the center of the room. On it sat a small cube, about 10 centimeters on each side, its surface a dull grey metal. Think that's what we came for? A figure materialized before us, humanoid but clearly not human. Its form shifted constantly, as if struggling to maintain cohesion in our reality. Welcome, children of dust. It spoke, its voice the same one we'd heard at the vault door. You have come seeking treasure, but the true wealth here is knowledge. What are you? I managed to ask. The being's form rippled. I am the Guardian, the keeper of secrets, the last remnant of those you call the Ancients. Saul stepped forward, scientific curiosity overriding his fear. You're saying you're one of the beings that built this station? Built? The Guardian seemed amused. This station is but a fragment, a splinter of our true creation, a prison and a paradise, a crucible and a cradle. Rax was furiously taking notes on his wrist computer. What happened to the rest of your kind? The Guardian's form darkened. We reached too far, touched that which should not be touched, and in our hubris we unleashed something beyond even our comprehension. A chill ran down my spine. The entity the Admiral mentioned in his message. Yes, a cosmic horror, a being of pure chaos. We managed to contain it, but at great cost. Now only I remain, bound to this place for eternity. Coda gestured to the cube on the dais. And that? What's its purpose? It is the key and the lock, the means to unleash untold power or to seal it away forever. The choice is yours. What happens if we take it? The Guardian's form wavered ominously. You will gain knowledge beyond your wildest dreams, technology to reshape worlds, but you will also inherit our burden, the responsibility to keep the entity contained. And if we leave it? Saul asked. Then the status quo remains. The entity stays trapped, and the secrets of the universe remain hidden. I looked at my crew, saw the conflict in their eyes. The promise of unimaginable wealth and knowledge warred with the terrifying responsibility being offered. "We need to discuss this," I said to the Guardian. "Choose wisely, children of dust. The fate of more than just yourselves hangs in the balance." As the Guardian vanished, we huddled together. "This is way beyond anything we signed up for," Saul said. "Yeah, but think of the power. We could change everything," Coda argued. Rax was quiet, his eyes moving between his notes and the cube. "The technological advancements alone. It's tempting." I remained silent. The wealth we'd come for seemed trivial now, but could we handle the responsibility that came with this power? Could we trust ourselves not to make the same mistakes as the ancients? As we debated, the Guardian reappeared, its form more unstable than before. "The entity stirs," it warned. "Your presence has agitated it. You must decide now. Take the cube and flee, or leave it and face the consequences of your intrusion." "We don't have time for a debate," I growled, eyeing the cube. "We need to make a decision." Coda stepped forward, his massive frame tensed. "I say we take it. We came here for a score, and this is bigger than anything we could have imagined." "Are you insane?" Saul hissed. "You heard what that thing said. We'd be responsible for containing some cosmic horror. We're scavengers, not guardians of the galaxy." Rax hadn't taken his eyes off the crystalline data processors. "The technological advancements alone could revolutionize our entire civilization. Think of the possibilities." "Seth," Saul pleaded, "be reasonable. We need to leave this place, warn others to stay away." The Guardian's form stabilized momentarily, its voice urgent. "The entity awakens. Your presence has disrupted the containment fields. You must choose now." With a muttered curse, I made my decision. "We're taking it. Coda, grab the cube. Rax, download whatever data you can from those processors. We're leaving." Saul looked at me in disbelief, but there was no time for arguments. Coda snatched the cube from its pedestal, and immediately the chamber plunged into darkness. Emergency lighting turned on, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. We ran for the exit, the station shaking around us. As we passed through the vault door, I glanced back to see the Guardian's form dissolving into motes of light. "The burden is yours now," it called out. "May you bear it better than we did." The vault door slammed shut behind us, cutting off the Guardian's final words. We sprinted through the corridors, the station seemingly coming apart at the seams. "Vern!" I shouted into the comm. "Fire up the engines! We're coming in hot!" Static crackled for a moment before Vern's panicked voice came through. "About damn time! Something's happening out here. The station's changing." As we ran, I noticed the walls around us shifting, organic-looking growth spreading like a cancer. We ran up to the end of the corridor and came face to face with a nightmare. What had once been a human, or something like it, now stood before us. Its flesh was warped, limbs bent, and joints malformed hideously. Multiple eyes blinked at us from a face that was more tentacle than anything recognizable. Coda didn't hesitate. He opened fire. The creature fell, its flesh bubbling and dissolving even as it hit the ground. We finally reached the docking bay, our ship a welcome sight amidst the chaos. As we piled in, I saw more of those beings emerging from the shadows. The engines roared to life, and we tore free from the station's docking clamps. As we pulled away, I got my first look at the full scale of what was happening. The entire station was transforming. Massive tentacles of metal and organic matter writhed in space. At the center, where the core should have been, a swirling vortex of dark energy emitted a sinister glow. "My God," Saul whispered. "What have we released?" We'd come looking for treasure and found something impossible. The universe had just become a much darker, more dangerous place. And we were the ones who'd opened Pandora's box. Vern maneuvered us into the docking bay of Outpost Sigma 9, a nondescript asteroid base on the fringes of civilized space. As the airlock cycled, I could feel the weight of the cube in my pack, a constant reminder of our foolish decision. "All right," I said, addressing the crew as we disembarked. "We'll hole up here for a bit, catch our breath, and figure out our next move." Rax's eyes darted nervously. "I need to examine that cube. If we're going to profit from this mess, we need to know exactly what it is." We made our way through the outpost. Finding an abandoned storage room, we barricaded ourselves inside. "Let's see it, Seth," Coda grunted. I pulled the cube from my pack, its dull grey surface now marred with faint lines of energy. As I set it on a nearby crate, my fingers brushed against one of the glowing patterns. Suddenly, the room filled with light. We instinctively recoiled as a holographic projection materialized before us, so crisp and real it was as if we were there. A massive space station hung in the void, its design achingly familiar. "That's Nexus Prime," Saul whispered, referring to humanity's greatest off-world achievement. As we watched, horror-struck, dark tendrils of energy began to snake around the station. They moved with terrifying speed, puncturing the hull as if it were paper. Atmosphere vented violently into space, carrying with it wreckage and bodies. I saw a man, his face frozen in horror, mouth wide in a mute cry as he was sucked into the void. The tendrils coalesced, forming a mass of impossible geometry. Eyes blinked open across its surface, and massive teeth gnashed, tearing through entire sections of the station. "My God!" Rax choked out. "It's consuming everything!" The scene shifted. We were now looking at a planet, green and blue, teeming with life. The entity descended from orbit, its form now so vast it blotted out the sun. Cities crumbled as the ground itself seemed to rebel. Fissures opened up, swallowing entire buildings. The entity's tendrils reached down, and wherever they touched, life simply ceased to be. I watched in mute horror as people disintegrated, their bodies turning to ash and scattering on unnatural winds. A final shift brought us to the depths of space. A massive fleet of warships, thousands strong, engaged the entity. Energy weapons and missiles impacted its form, only to be absorbed. Entire ships were enveloped, their crews twisted and fused with the hulls to create nightmarish, living weapons. As abruptly as it had started, the projection vanished. We stood in stunned silence. Vern was the first to speak. We've doomed everyone, haven't we?" I looked at the cube, now inert and seemingly harmless. "What have we released?" I muttered, the full impact of our greed and stupidity finally hitting home. "We need a plan," I said, cutting through the rising voices of my crew, "and we need it fast." The decision was made in the end. We had to get rid of the cube. None of us were equipped to handle the responsibility it represented. "I know a place," Vern said. "Terminus. It's a black market hub hidden in the Cerberus asteroid field. If anyone can take this thing off our hands, we'll find them there." The journey to Terminus was filled with paranoia. Every passing ship, every random sensor blip had us on edge, convinced that someone somehow knew what we carried. As we approached the asteroid field, I saw Terminus for the first time. It was a maze of interconnected structures, built into and around a cluster of asteroids. Neon signs in a dozen languages advertised everything from exotic weaponry to outlawed biotech. This was a place where anything could be bought or sold, for the right price. Vern docked us in a discreet bay, and we made our way into the heart of Terminus. The corridors were cramped and crowded, filled with a dizzying array of species. The air smelled of exotic spices, machine oil, and desperation. "I've set up meetings with 3 potential buyers," I told the crew as we navigated the chaotic bazaar. "We'll hear them out and take the best offer. No haggling, no games. We get rid of this thing and disappear." Our first meeting was with a hegemony Black Ops agent, a sharp-faced woman who introduced herself simply as Miss Black. We met in a quiet corner of a dingy bar, the kind of place where everyone minded their own business, if they knew what was good for them. Miss Black's eyes lit up when she saw the cube, but as soon as I mentioned its origin, her demeanor changed completely. "You fools!" she hissed, pushing away from the table. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The hegemony can't be associated with this. You're on your own." She was gone before we could say another word. Our second meeting was with a secretive collector of alien artifacts. The withered old man, his species indeterminate beneath layers of flowing robes, met us in a private showroom filled with strange and wondrous objects. When I placed the cube before him, he reached out with a trembling hand to touch it. The moment his fingers made contact, his eyes rolled back in his head and he let out a blood-curdling shriek. Two hulking bodyguards rushed in, hurrying their master away as he babbled incoherently about the end of all things. Our final option was a powerful crime syndicate known as the Crimson Nebula. Their representative, a brute named Grix, met us in a luxurious suite high above the main bazaar. Grix examined the cube. "Interesting," he rumbled. "Very interesting indeed. The Nebula would be willing to take this off your hands for, say, 10 million credits. It was a fortune, more than enough to set us up for life." "On second thought," Grix said, his voice dropping to a menacing growl, "I think we'll just take it. Nothing personal, you understand. Business is business." The room erupted into chaos. Coda reacted first, flipping the heavy table as a shield, just as Grix's hidden guards opened fire. Rax and Saul dove for cover behind a plush couch, while I snatched the cube and made a break for the door. We ran through the passageways of Terminus, shoving past startled merchants and dodging weapons fire. The cube vibrated in my hand, almost as if it was alive and reveling in the chaos. As we neared the docking bay, I could hear Grix's men closing in, the pounding of their boots growing louder with each passing second. We sprinted across the docking bay, diving through the airlock just as blaster fire erupted behind us. The door slammed shut, and I felt the ship lurch as Vern punched the throttle. As we tore away from Terminus, I slumped against the bulkhead, exhaustion and adrenaline leaving me shaky. The cube sat in the center of the floor, looking deceptively harmless. "Well," Saul said, wiping sweat from his brow, "I think it's safe to say the black market's not an option anymore." Coda grunted in agreement. "So what now, boss?" I stared at the cube. "We need a new plan, and we need it fast, because I've got a feeling our options are running out." As we drifted through the void, desperately trying to formulate a plan, the ship's comm system activated. A voice, smooth and unnervingly calm, filled the cabin. "Greetings, bearers of the cosmic key. We are the children of the void, and we have a proposition for you." We exchanged wary glances. Rax worked at the console, trying to trace the signal. "How did you find us?" I demanded. The voice chuckled. "The key calls to those who listen, Captain. We've been awaiting its return for eons." I felt a jolt of fear. These people, whoever they were, knew far too much. "We wish to meet," the voice continued. "Neutral ground. The abandoned Stardust Hotel on Omega Station. Come alone. Bring the key. We will make it worth your while." The transmission cut off abruptly. "It's a trap," Coda growled. Saul nodded in agreement. "We'd be fools to go." I stared at the cube. We might be bigger fools not to. We're out of options, and these people seem to know what we're dealing with. After heated debate, we set course for Omega Station. As we approached, I saw the Stardust Hotel, once a luxurious resort, now a decaying husk orbiting the station proper. We docked, and I made my way inside alone, the cube in my pack. The hotel's grand atrium was a shadow of its former self. Faded banners hung limply, and the fountain at its center was dry and cracked. "Welcome, Captain!" I spun to face the voice. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, gaunt, clad in flowing robes adorned with various symbols. "I am Morven," he said, bowing slightly. "High Priest of the Children of the Void. We've been expecting you." As my eyes adjusted, I saw others emerging from hiding spots around the atrium. All wore similar robes, their faces marked with tattoos. "What do you want?" I asked, my hand hovering near my blaster. Morven smiled, revealing teeth filed to points. "To fulfill our destiny, of course. And you, my friend, hold the key, quite literally." He gestured, and a holographic display activated. It showed the ancient station where we'd found the cube, but with overlays of information I couldn't understand. "Our order has safeguarded the knowledge of the ancients for millennia," Morven explained. "We know of the entity you encountered, the one your people so crudely call a cosmic horror. But it is so much more. It is transcendence, evolution, the next step in universal consciousness." I listened, horrified and fascinated, as Morven laid out their plan. They planned to use the cube as a conduit to communicate with the entity, hoping to gain its cosmic knowledge. "And what's in it for us?" I asked, playing along. Morven's smile widened. Practical concerns, of course." He produced a data chip. "Coordinates to a derelict capital ship, untouched since the last Great War. Its holds are bursting with precious resources, its databanks filled with advanced technology. All this can be yours. All we ask in return is the cube and the location of the station where you found it." I stared at the chip. The wealth he offered could set us up for life, solve all our problems. But the cost. "You do realize what you're planning will likely destroy everything," I said. Morven nodded, his eyes alight with fervor. "To create, one must first destroy. The old order must fall for the new to rise. Surely you've seen glimpses of the future through the cube. The glorious transformation that awaits us all." I thought of the visions we'd witnessed. Worlds torn apart, civilizations annihilated. Was this truly the future these fanatics desired? "I'll need to discuss this with my crew," I said carefully. "Of course," Morven replied. "But do not tarry. The stars align, Captain. The time of awakening is at hand." As I made my way back to the ship, my mind was a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. The cult's offer was tempting. A way out of our predicament, a chance at unimaginable wealth. But the cost? Could we live with ourselves if we doomed the galaxy? I gathered the crew in our cramped common area, laying out the cult's proposition in detail. "So let me get this straight," Coda said, his eyes narrowing. "We hand over the cube, tell them where we found it, and in return, we get coordinates to a treasure trove that'll set us up for life." "That's the deal." Saul shook his head vehemently. "This is madness. We can't give them the means to unleash that thing upon the universe, the destruction we saw in those visions. We'd be dooming countless lives." "And what's the alternative?" Rax countered. "The hegemony wants us dead. The black market's turned against us. We're carrying a cosmic bomb with a target on our backs." Vern, usually quiet, spoke up from the pilot's seat. "Much as I hate to admit it, Rax has a point. We're not equipped to handle this. Maybe it's better in the hands of people who understand it." "Understand it?" Saul scoffed. "They're fanatics. They want to reshape the universe. Whatever that means. We can't trust them." The argument raged on, each of us grappling with the moral implications of our choice. I remained silent, weighing our options carefully. Finally, Coda slammed his fist on the table. "Look, we started this job for credits, a big score to set us up, get us out of this life. Now we've got the chance to do just that. I say we take it." I looked around at my crew, saw the fear, the exhaustion, the glimmer of hope at the prospect of escaping our hardscrabble existence. With a heavy sigh, I made my decision. "We'll do it," I said, silencing any further debate. "We'll give them the cube and the coordinates, and then we're done. We take our payment and disappear." The relief on their faces was obvious, mixed with a hint of guilt that we all tried to ignore. The exchange was quick and unceremonious. Morven's eyes lit up with fanatical joy as I handed over the cube and the data chip containing the station's coordinates. "You've made the right choice," he said, his voice filled with reverence. "The universe will be reshaped, and you'll have played your part in its grand design." I didn't reply, simply taking the chip he offered in return. As we left the Stardust Hotel, the sense of having made a terrible mistake wouldn't leave me. But the die was cast. Back on our ship, Vern input the coordinates we'd been given. As we prepared to jump to FTL, silence fell over the crew. We'd achieved what we'd set out to do, secure our fortune, but the cost felt impossibly high. Hours later, we dropped out of FTL in an unremarkable system, and there we saw it. The capital ship was massive, easily 10 times the size of the largest hegemony cruiser I'd ever seen. Its hull was scarred from ancient battles, but intact. This was no derelict. It was a perfectly preserved relic from a long-forgotten war. "My God," Rax whispered, his eyes wide as he scanned the ship. "The technology on that thing, we're going to be rich beyond our wildest dreams." As we approached our prize, I should have felt elated. This was the score of a lifetime, the key to a future free from the hardships we'd endured. Yet all I could think about was the cube, now in the hands of fanatics, and the terrible future we might have unleashed. The massive ship filled our viewport, promising untold riches and advanced technology. But as we prepared to dock, a nagging suspicion lingered, hinting that this was just the start of something much larger and more terrifying. Our fortunes were made, but the universe might pay a heavy price.